Hi, I'm Robin Fickey, Senior Vice President of Research at World Business Chicago. We are here at the Chicago Venture Summit, Future of Climate Tech, and I'm with Sanjeev Krishnan, who's from S2G Ventures. Sanjeev, take a moment and introduce yourself.
I'm Sanjeev Krishnan. I'm with S2G Ventures. S2G is what I'd call a transition solutions platform, really focused on three sectors: energy, food, and ag, oceans. We approached it with both venture growth investments as well as credit and infrastructure investments. We have about $2 billion under management, offices in Chicago, San Francisco, and Boston, and a team of about 45 people or so.
Oh, wow, great.
And it's been around 10 years.
Yeah. That's really fascinating. So I think on that, tell us, we're here at a climate tech, and everybody's sort of talking about climate tech. We have a report. We just wrote a report on Chicagoland's green future, where we try to scope out the green economy and talk about, how productive the green economy is. But from your perspective, is that the right framework? Is it actually really what we should be talking about in terms of, is this green or is this not green, or is it something broader and bigger?
Yeah, so it's our view, or at least my view, that the last 30 years are not like the next 30 years.
Yeah.
The world economic growth the last 30 years have been driven by globalization,
Right.
Favorable demographics, cost of capital that's gone from 14% interest rates to 2%,
Right.
A sort of financialization of consumer markets,
Right.
That's led to a lot of consumer GDP.
Yeah.
And the next 30 years, you're going to have issues around globalization, issues around demographics. We're all growing older. And you're going to have 10 billion people that require, food and transportation and energy, and really 1.6 Earths. And so to us, if you look at GDP growth as sort of the equation being the change in demographics times the change in productivity, the productivity dividend of the last 30 or 40 years, in our view, is over.
Yeah.
And so that's going to present real challenge to global economic growth fundamentally.
Yeah.
And then you really think about it, is you need a change in productivity.
Right.
And where is productivity going to come from? It's going to come from not just computation, but electrons, calories, water, transportation. And to me, that is the great opportunity of the next 30 years, is to invest in resource productivity.
Yeah.
And that is the revolution that I think we need, given 10 billion people, given the environmental physics of the planet. And it's going to create jobs, it's going to create wealth, it's going to create cheaper, faster, better products and services in these industries. That's going to take innovation.
Yep.
That's going to take, which is physics, chemistry, biology. That's going to take business model innovation, which I would argue is entrepreneurs that try to use those and commercialize those. It's going to take civil society and policy. And we think we've made a great start with the IRA.
Yeah.
What's happening in Europe, what's happening in China, for example.
Right.
And then lastly, and this is the problem we're working on, it's going to take fit for purpose capital markets.
Right, exactly.
To really finance this transition of resource productivity. And we're really sort of getting our inspiration from the last 4 cycles of productivity, which were railroads, electricity, oil and polymers. And then the last one that I think that we're still in the middle of is computation.
Yes.
So from Fairchild Semiconductor and HP to what's happening with AI today. Right. And all that required, like in computing, it was venture capital, the invention of venture capital as an asset class. In climate and in resource productivity, we don't have that fit for purpose capital market system today. And that's really what we as a platform are kind of endeavoring every day to do, is kind of what is that capital market system that will finance this resource productivity transition.
Right. Thank you for that. So now that we've kind of right-sized, so to speak, the issues that were kind of, the framework of this discussion, tell us then, because, we're here, founders are here really trying to kind of identify sources of capital. What would you say to founders, given this framework here, who are working on, clean tech, climate tech issues? What do you look for in founders, and what should founders be thinking about as they're building their solutions?
I mean, fundamentally, are you solving a problem, and are you offering something that's cheaper, faster, better than the alternative? Not on day one or even, year 3, but is that the vision? Is that the goal of the product or the technology or the service or the platform that you've started? Number one. Number two, I think it's going to take a ton of persistence,
Right.
a lot of character.
Yeah.
This is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
It's going to take a long time. It's going to cost twice as much, take 3 times as long. And taking that and kind of internalizing that in the way you think about the product,
Right.
and the unit economics of the product, the way you think about your partners that you bring on board, the team you bring on board, the board you
Right.
assemble. I think having that framework of sort of agility and persistence is, I think, really important, and humility.
Yeah.
I think, it shouldn't be that you need a once in a generation entrepreneur to really change these
Right.
industries. It's actually, how do you build product market fit, then how do you build infrastructure, then how do you scale? Knowing all of 3 of those things are super hard and are going to take
Yeah.
a ton of patience and persistence.
Got it. It's a very iterative process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then thinking about that, right? And we've heard a lot about, gaps, gaps in the systems throughout this summit. And we've also really talked about innovation, technology. What are some of the things that you're thinking about and are talking about internally that you're not seeing elsewhere, that you really think that people should be sort of thinking and talking about, given how you just sort of laid out that broader framework? What are the areas that you're like, these are actually the real gaps that we think need to be addressed?
There's a ton of them, and we have no monopoly on
Right.
identifying those frictions. I do think we try to approach everything with the first principle systems mindset.
Mm-hmm.
How is the system designed? And then how then can we invest to change that system? So like, if you think about the 3 things we work on, energy is largely a physics system in our view, although
Right.
there's some other. Oceans and food and ag are biology systems.
Right.
And that alone gives you a lot of framework for how innovation gets mode of action, proof of concept, ROI, I think that's number one. I think, just as an example, the energy space, everyone's identified, transmission, critical minerals, financing gaps, etc. I think one sort of out of the box thing that we've thought a lot about is the role of rural broadband and broadband overall.
Okay.
If you want a more bi-directional grid, you need to have more connectivity, and you can't have blind spots
Right.
outside urban areas to really have a more dynamic grid
Yeah.
that can manage renewables, as an example. So we try to, and we're about to close on a deal that focuses on sort of this convergence of rural broadband and energy transition.
Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting there is a lot of rural electricity co-ops are also doing the internet in that local jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of how we get a lot of energy from. Now, we don't do all of these investments as out of the box, but in a portfolio, there are some things where we can attack non-obvious challenges
Right.
that are systemic
Right.
and present a friction, to the problem.
Yeah. So I like that, right? I like how you just sort of did that for, listeners, is that really the system that we're kind of thinking about is beyond clean or climate tech. It is really a broader system that's thinking about the world 30 years from now. And then for founders, having the persistence to not just to develop that kind of non-obvious product, but also how it fits into the system, right? And having the persistence to kind of build a team that's got that broader vision that's going to really land in a place that's transformative as this sort of rapid, revolution of this sort of everything that's going on.
Yeah,
right?
and sometimes you have to ride the waves of others.
Yeah.
And systemically, there's second order, third order things happening. So in electric vehicles, we had an investment in 2006 that we did. And the battery selection we did was based on what Detroit thought.
Right.
4 stationary batteries. Company came along, may or may not be one of the largest car companies by market cap. And what did? They didn't choose stationary batteries. If you had 4 batteries, they put 60 batteries.
Right.
Making stuff up, and they did it in a way that borrowed from the deflation of batteries going into PCs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they were able to get cheaper, faster, better.
Right.
Sort of battery systems. that was more riding a secular curve of more smartphones, more PCs.
Right.
And so these are some of the things that I think founders, when they think about product development, particularly in hardware or in tough tech, is what are secular themes that are occurring that you can benefit from and adopt. And that's what I think, frankly, helped Tesla. One of the things that helped Tesla scale is their approach to batteries and approach to energy management.
Right. That's actually really smart. And so thank you for sharing that. And I think that's really valuable information for really also just everybody, that's, whether you're a founder or not. So then let's think through really quickly, what would you recommend given this is a power of convening here, right? So these are also sort of, there's a benefit to sharing ideas. What would you recommend for founders to kind of walk away from something like attending a venture summit? What's the things that they should be thinking about? What should they be trying to accomplish here? What should they walk away with the understanding here? There's a lot of great speakers. You were on a panel recently and really shared some thoughtful insights. What else should founders be doing at events like this?
It's really interesting on sort of our media landscape, the way the technology's evolved. Like, I think of this as community, content, and commerce.
Yeah.
And the content is your argument, like why your company should exist, why your fund should exist, why whatever should exist. And what are you trying to do? Community is sort of both the ecosystem that you're going to need to go to market, to get finance, to hire the right people, to get, regulatory and policymakers and civil society folks on your side. And then there's the actual commerce.
Right.
And see, events like this, maybe they challenge the content of what you're doing, the content of your company, your argument, your product. And communities, you can't do this alone, and so you need this. You need people in this room that can offer you advice, that can make connections. So, and then commerce is just an outcome to me of great content. Which content is an argument, it's a product, it's whatever you think the world needs, and the community of ecosystem partners that help you get it into the hands of customers and consumers and help you scale. So I often think this is that sort of iterative loop of content, community, and commerce. Yeah,
I like that. You offer that's really great. Content, community, and commerce. Very sticks around in your brain. So as we're kind of wrapping up on this piece, 3 things that you think that really we should be watching out for over the next 5 to 10 years, technology, developments, anything that's really top of mind, the top 3 things that we should be thoughtful about.
I think, to me, the energy transition is going from simple to complex.
Yeah.
And that complexity, I think, offers a lot of opportunity with distributed energy, parts that are molecules, of taking electricity, turning molecules.
Right.
I think in food and ag, I think there is going to be a huge opportunity to take an extractive. I think of agriculture going from sort of to renewable mining, and soil health, and effectively renewable mining of soils to effectively produce biomass and calories. And hopefully some of that gets to a point where you're trying to preventative care to the healthcare system. This convergence of food and health, I think, is really important. In the ocean sector, I think we know more about space in the oceans.
Yeah.
And I think that ocean IoT is going to be a big, important, interesting theme as you have more weather volatility and you want reinsurers want more of that data. Things like offshore wind are going to want that data. Defense are going to want that data. And shipping. Okay, and so the maritime economy is going to get much more digitized and IoT'd. The ocean economy is going to get much more digitized and IoT'd. And that's going to provide really interesting perspective. Eventually, what I'd love to see is ocean CDR.
Okay.
And effectively, the oceans as a bigger absorption of carbon than all forestry. And have that measured, have that incented, and have that be a real marketplace.
Right. Oh, thank you for that. Those are actually really insightful. This has been a really insightful conversation, Sanjeev. Thank you so much for taking the time today. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you.